This week on Hip Hop Now podcast, we take a deep dive into the lore and the music of the Wu-Tang Clan. Is that dramatic enough for y'all?
But let's get right to the business. Read these headlines. This album must be gone. This album must be gone. Classic albums are Come to Hip Hop Podcast.
What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now Podcast Extra, a podcast designed to catch you up on all things hip-hop music and culture that happened throughout the week and lifetimes, your lifetime and mine's. I'm hyped. It's Friday the 13th. I don't know why I'm hyped. Sidebar. Y'all seen that Friday the 13th game? I play video games every now and again. I might get that. It seems pretty fun. Hit me up on PlayStation at VEGUSS 2001 is my tag. No stalkers, please. This is Hip Hop Now Podcast Extra. I am your host, Vegas. This podcast is available on iTunes, on your Android device, on apps like Spreaker and Stitcher Radio and TuneIn and Podbean. Basically, everywhere you are, I am. This podcast is supported by those who love hip-hop music and culture. Everybody who listens to this podcast and stays with this podcast and enjoys this podcast, and more importantly, shares this podcast, is certified hip-hop fans, because you can't listen to a podcast like this and not be a fan. And even if you're not a fan, let me not say that. Maybe you're a newcomer. Maybe you're a younger cat. Maybe you're an older dude. And you find that you don't really know that much about hip-hop and the culture and why we do this and why we say that and why we feel the way we feel about some of our artists. This is a perfect podcast for you because I'm all about the context. And this is a perfect episode for you if you've any had an inkling of interest into the Wu-Tang Clan as far as knowing of them but not really being a fan, or being a fan of their past music and not knowing whether or not their music is worth it today. See where I'm going with that? And for those who come to this podcast and know that it is at its core a news-first podcast, I tend to do these extras when there's nothing really compelling to me to hold a show. My show is only a half an hour for the most part. If there's not enough stories that are compelling enough to me to get you to take your valuable time and listen, then we got to dissect some stuff. And honestly, I don't know about you, but I really like dissecting stuff. So let's get right into the business. Wu-Tang Clan just dropped a very new album on Friday the 13th for people who are listening in the future. If you're listening in the past, I'm afraid of you, because how the hell you get there to hear this? But they dropped a new album. It's called Wu-Tang, The Saga Continues. It's a compilation album. Now, see, this is the difference, right? Shout out to my man Kill. Check out his website, Will Make Beats for Food. I frequently appear on his podcast. It's about hip-hop. It's dope. But he said this to me recently, like he don't really get excited for a Wu album if RZA's not producing it. And that had me thinking, right? I loosely follow the Wu as a group. I'm not talking about the individuals. Like every Ghostface release, I'm on it. Every Raekwon release, I'm on it. You know what I'm saying? But as a group, it's kind of been a mix mash and kind of like, just it's been not what we would want, to be honest, as a longtime fan. And I say that because there's a difference. There's the Wu-Tang official albums, and then there's the Wu-Tang official compilation albums. And the difference is the Wu-Tang official albums are like 36 Chambers. Wu-Tang members, that's it. You know what I'm saying? RZA on production. The compilation albums are still the Wu-Tang Clan, but RZA's not handling all the production. The production is typically really handled by someone else, and features a ton of people who they collaborated with over the years or they cool with. And one thing that I've observed over time is that in recent years, the compilations are better than the Wu-Tang official albums. And we're going to break that down. But I just want to plug their new album, which I'm still in the process of reviewing. So look out for that. I'll probably do it on my YouTube channel, B-Roll Network, BROLE Network. I got some new videos up there. You can check it out, but I'll probably review it there. But the new album is a compilation. It features all the members of Wu-Tang that you would expect, except for You God. Which, to be honest, not a lot of us are upset about that. I'm saying. And I don't really know the backstory as to why You God is not on here, but it features other acts besides the Wu-Tang members. Like it features Redman. Oh damn! I think I just hit play on it, y'all. They about to come for me. But it features, like Raekwon. I'm not Raekwon. Redman's on here. Who else? Chris Rivers on here. Killer Priest, you know him. Wu-Tang, longtime Wu-Tang affiliate. Sean Price. Sean Price is on everybody's album. And he ain't even here, fam. Him and Prodigy are on every new album that drops, and they ain't even here. That's work. Salute. Redman's on 2 records. Okay. Street Life, y'all remember him. Wu-Tang affiliate. So there's 18 tracks and skits and intros and stuff like that. But I want to break down this album. And there's some audio from Old Dirty. Yes, Old Dirty is here as well. The album was produced by Wu-Tang's longtime DJ and producer and creator of the Wu-Tang symbol that we all know and love, the one that's on this podcast. Salute to that. Mathematics, he put this compilation together. Now, I remember RZA said in the build-up to the release of this, Mathematics has put together a masterpiece. I will tell you how I feel about that. But let's get into the Wu-Tang Clan's history as far as them as a group and albums. Now, on a past podcast, I made a point to say, as a group, Wu-Tang's catalog is pretty weak. And I stand by that. But I was really only talking about the officials. When you start with Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers, released in 1993, 5-mic classic, undoubtable, groundbreaking, one of the greatest hip-hop albums of all time for a number of reasons. The beats, the raps, the collaborations between the different rappers, the gimmick, the cover, all of it. Undeniable classic, released in 1993. Unanimous, right? Then in 1997, so the Wu rocked for a good 4 years before they released another album, which is insane. But we all know we got these solo albums in between that. But we're not talking about the solo albums. We're talking about the Wu-Tang albums. In 1997, Wu-Tang Forever, a double album by Wu-Tang Clan, and almost a somewhat polarizing album, because today a lot of people look at it like in 1997, that means this album came out 20 years ago. I just want to let you know that. That was 20 years ago. But the thing about that album is, if they would have broke it down to the best songs, we're talking about another undeniable 5 mics, 5 stars, classic for the same exact reasons as Into the Wu-Tang. But because there were so many songs, and I guess they felt like they wanted to give their fans just as much, there are songs on there that could have been left off for another project later on. But still, in my mind, it's still a classic. I mean, Triumph. I know that's one record, but my God, that beat, Inspector Deck on that track, the way Ghost finished, yo, the Wu, like they say, the Wu is coming through. The outcome is critical. Yes. It was that crazy. I know I'm getting amped. Y'all not used to this. 3 years later, though, they released The W in 2000. Now, I'm looking at allmusic.com, which is a great source for information, in my opinion, better than Wikipedia, because not even though there's some facts in Wikipedia, the fact that it's crowdsourced always makes me feel a little iffy. Allmusic.com, us radio pros tend to use it because it's factual, completely for the most part. I know I'm saying both. I'm hedging my bets. What do you want? I'm called Vegas. But the W was released in 2000. And even though when I look, it was released on Columbia. They started out on Loud Records. But when I look at this album and I look at the All Music rating, which is the what I know I got sound effects or whatever. It's whatever. But the All Music rating is kind of based off the critics rating. And right now that album, the W, is at 4.5, which is higher than Wu-Tang Forever, which they have sitting at 4 stars. And then when it comes to the user rating, us, the people, right, the fans, it's sitting at 4.5 also, which fans feel the same way about Wu-Tang Forever. But I am here to tell you what I think about that album. I think that album is complete trash. Gravel Pit, you cannot convince me. That album was garbage to me. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the beats. I don't know if it was some of the hooks. I don't know if it felt and sound uninspired. It didn't have the same force that came with Into the Wu-Tang and Wu-Tang Forever. Those two albums felt like movements. It's Wu-Tang time. The W sound like we're trying to fit in. The Wu doesn't have to fit in, if you ask me. So I did not like the W. That was their first whack album, and it was truly whack, especially coming off the first two. And maybe that's the problem. Maybe I need to listen to it in its own space. But I'm pretty sure it's whack. I listened to it numerous times. You know why? Because 1 year later, they released another album, which they hadn't done. You saw the time frame between the other albums, 1993, 97, 2000, and then 2001. So they released an album right away. And Old Dirty had passed, and the 9/11 thing happened. And that album is called Iron Flag. Now, this album is rated below that Columbia release. And it's back on Columbia and Loud Records. But guess what? Iron Flag is a dope album. I liked it when it came out. I felt like the Wu was back. I felt like the W was a mistake that happened that was circumstantial, regardless of what was going on with them. I felt like what I liked about the Wu was back. And when I listen to that album to this day, all those feelings come back, and that's how you should feel about it, Doji. So, right, we got 2 dope albums, 1 dud. This is my opinion, but 2 dope albums, 1 dud, and then another dope album, right? The Wu is doing pretty good. This is what I explained before in the past. But see, now we're going to get into that area of time where the Wu official albums kind of took a break, and we had some compilations pop up, and eventually an official Wu album came out. In 2004, Disciples of the 36 Chambers, Chapter 1. This was released in 2004. The critical rating was 2.5 stars. The user rating was 4. This album, which again was a Disciples type thing, was more of it was a greatest hits for the most part. Greatest hits with a couple of joints. Let's see, I'm going through the list. It's mostly a greatest hits now that I look at it. Yeah, okay. So it was more so a greatest hits, but it was a little bit thrown together. You know what I'm saying? It just didn't feel like official Wu-Tang stamp was put on it. It was released on Sanctuary in 2004. It's not one of those greatest hits, if you ask me, that I needed. Honestly, I'm the type of fan where I owned all of it, so it didn't matter. But in 2005, a year later, another compilation, so to speak, album, not an official album, was released. It's called Wu-Tang Meets the Indie Culture, Volume 1. The critic rating is at 4 stars. The fan rating is at 4.5 stars. Now, this one I didn't have, but there's a reason. Mainly because this was the first time they did a compilation album, and honestly, I felt some kind of way about it not being a official Wu-Tang album. But the list of people who appeared were pretty dope. Razkaz, you got a song with Jizza and Razkaz. Sean Price is on here. Who else is on here? C. Ray Walls. Tragedy Gaddafi is on here. Rock Marciano. MF Doom is on here. Del the Funky Homo Sapien. Planet Asia's on here. Dreddy Kruger. Well, I haven't heard that name in a long time. A-Side Brock is on here. A couple of people. Honestly, that's actually a project I would have to go back to and listen to because, again, I just wasn't feeling it. I wanted a Wu album. And in 2007, an official Wu album came out. And I was excited at the fact that, because remember, Iron Flag came out in 2001. 6 years later, they finally released a official Wu-Tang album. Because I had a problem with the fact that, you have like 300 members in the Wu alone, along with the affiliates. Why do you need to do a compilation with other people? I don't think it's going to work in every case. I think it only works when you handpick. Like, I think MF Doom is perfect. Put him and Rizzo on a track. Perfect. Just certain people not going to work. You know what I'm saying? And you got all these members. Why not just keep it going? But this album that they released in 2007 was called 8 Diagrams. It was released on Motown Records. The critic rating is sitting at 4 stars. The user rating is sitting at 4 stars. But Vegas's ratings is sitting at 0 stars. I felt like this was only a step above the W, and that's not saying much. Why? For everything it was supposed to be, it didn't sound like it. I remember the build-up to this album being a lot about RZA and his vision for the production. And the vision sound dope. Like, I was all in. Like, oh, it's called 8 Diagram, and he's trying to use these kinds of samples, and and go here with the production. And it just sound and felt like something that was not Wu-Tang Clan. Because for everything that the Wu was in those early days, one thing that they did, they were just dope MCs. With all the karate gimmicks, all the alternate ego names and everything, the one thing that they represented, like I said, how I felt about Triumph, was they was rappers. They were dope. And this felt like the MCs were trying to do their 1-2 thing, but RZA was trying to create a background or a soundtrack to them that didn't mesh. It didn't go together. It didn't sound like a collaboration. It sounded like I got these whack beats and I need verses over them. And the Wu, as far as the members, they're doing their job as far as putting verses out, but the feeling is gone. And regardless of what these critics say, I know what I heard, fam, and it wasn't that good. It's an album that I don't even own. And I own, like, certain artists like Nas, Biggie, let's say Nas, Biggie, and Jay-Z, right? Regardless let's not say Biggie, because some of the stuff that happened after he died, I stopped paying attention to, except for the Born Again joint. But they are artists that I'm so locked in, I'm going to buy it regardless. Jay-Z got a whack album, doesn't matter, I own it. Nas got a whack album, doesn't matter, I own it. The Wu, I had those same feelings for them, but after the W and then 8 Diagrams, I was just kind of like, I'm never going to listen to them joints. I'm never going to listen to them. I'm never going to try to see if they were good or they're good now, or there's a way to listen to it, or, maybe I'm in a different space and it'll sound better. It's never going to be that. So to me, the best way for me to is just take my ball and go home, fam. Like, I don't like it. The album's whack to me. And I listened to that album several times trying like, this is the Wu, man. Maybe I don't get it. But I couldn't. So when you look at it, thus far, they have 2 dope albums, both arguably classics. Well, the first one's a classic. I don't care what you have to say. Their debut is a classic. Get out of here. The second one, arguably, but saying something is almost a classic is still a hell of a compliment. The W was whack and Iron Flag was dope. And the 2 compilations, maybe the greatest hits and then the compilation were a little uninspired, in my opinion. And then 8 Diagrams was whack. So it's going all downhill from here, right? Then in 2008, a year later, they released soundtracks from the Shaolin Temple. This was on another different label. This was on, this was on iHip-Hop / Switchblade / Wonderlux. And the critical rating is at 3 out of 5 stars. And the fan rating is 3.5 stars. Now, to be honest, I'm trying to remember this. And I think this is something along the lines of a compilation of the whole indie culture. The album features Jedi Mind Tricks, Razkaz again, Killer Priest, says Timbo King. Isn't that an old school rapper? High Tech is on here. Who else? MF Doom is on here again. There's a lot. There's 21 tracks on here. Wow, I didn't even know that. Ice Water, Killer Sin, Lord Jamar's on here. Yes, Young Heads. He just doesn't sit on Vlad's couch. He's actually a rapper. But again, I heard that before. And like the Wu-Tang meets the indie culture, I just didn't feel like those collaborations really worked, in my opinion. I think they felt like we got music that's incomplete. We can't bring these brothers together to make an official album, but we got to keep going because it's the Wu. Let's put something together with what we have. And it wasn't that great. But a year later, things looked way better with the same scheme. And no, it wasn't an official album. We're going to get to that. But in 2009, they released another compilation, Wu-Tang compilation called Chamber Music. Now, the critic rating is at 3 stars. And the user rating is at 3.5 stars. And let me preference this, right? When I say the user rating, there's a number of how many people voted, because that goes a long way. The numbers for some of these are high and some are low. So there's not an indication of how good this album is, because you know what? I really like this one. Chamber Music to me was a breath of fresh air for a Wu-Tang fan who was on the ropes. I was on the ropes, y'all. I was like, yo, they keep hitting me with these whack joints. I'm going to bail out, and I'm not going to care about any Wu-Tang album ever that comes out. This album was pretty dope. It features Master Ace on here. Well, again, all the compilations feature the Wu members, but these are the collaborators. Master Ace is on here. AZ is on here. Cormega's on here. Sean Price. Sean Price is on all of these, by the way. Havoc is on here. Havoc of Mobb Deep. Who else is on here? MOP is on here. Cool G Rap. It's 17 tracks. When I first heard this joint, I was excited because I was like, I just wanted something that was Wu-Tang Clan that was dope. And even though it wasn't an official album, it was a really good compilation. And I listened to it frequently back in 2009. I'd listen to that joint like every day. Like I want to listen to it now. It was so good. Because it was like the collaborations worked, the beats were right. It felt like the verses were done, you know, with collaborations in mind. You know what I'm saying? I can't say that in every case, you know, these were verses that were in files or something like that, because I don't know that. But I feel like in a lot of cases it was. But this one worked. In 2011, they released Legendary Weapons on E1. The last one was actually on Koch and E1. But this one, Legendary Weapons, was released in 2011. The critic rating is at 3 stars again, and the user rating is at 3.5 stars again. But the Vegas rating, I like this one too. Now, I don't like it as much as I like chamber music, but this one was pretty dope as well. And it features, let me see. Well, they don't list the features on here. I don't know why. But this one was 14 tracks, not very long. A lot of the songs weren't long. And I think it was kind of suffering from, again, something just being kind of put together to get something out there. But I liked it, and I own it. So we go to 3 years later, 2014, an official Wu-Tang album. 7 years since their last album, 8 Diagrams, for which I thought was a dud. They finally released a new album, and it's called A Better Tomorrow. They're on Warner Brothers. Everyone in the Wu comes together. The critical rating for this is at 4 stars. The user rating is at 3.5 stars, but the Vegas rating is at trash. I was so disappointed in this album. I'm telling you, man. Now, I'm not saying, look, when I say something's whack, right? If it's whack and undefendable, I will say that. But this is whack for the Wu. Now, if Yachty put this out, I'll be like, yo, Yachty got some bars. But this is whack for the Wu. I listened to this album so many times in a row, trying my best to like it. Like, why do I gotta try to like it? And I just couldn't, man. It just wasn't connecting. And maybe the issue for me personally is I read into the buildup. I listen to RZA talk about it. I listen to all these Wu members talk about it. And there's been some controversy, because Raekwon has echoed a lot of what some of us fans feel. But the buildup of A Better Tomorrow and Wu-Tang uniting, the world, and the cover has all these symbols of other countries, and then you got the clouds above, and it's a Wu-Tang symbol with the sun shining through it. And I'm like, yes, the Wu is back. It's 2014. And it wasn't good, man. It wasn't good. It was another case where at least not all of it, sound and felt like that Wu energy. It didn't feel like that Rush. It didn't feel like Iron Flags, the Wu is one of the best groups. It didn't feel like 36 Chambers, we coming through. It didn't feel like Wu-Tang Forever. It didn't even feel like chamber music. It literally felt like y'all need to stop rapping. For example, and not that I completely agree with this dude because he's going in. This dude gave this album, this is a user, right? He gave this album 1 star. And I'm going to read a little bit of it. And it's totally disrespectful. But let's just see. And I quote, "Not to take shots at the Wu-Tang Clan, one of the most famous rap groups of all time, but this album sounds exactly like you think it would. 40-year-old rap artists, way past their prime, recording an album of vaguely inserted messages mixed in with what used to be considered enjoyable gangster rap. I'm not saying that hip-hop is dead, because it isn't." This guy's interesting. I got to hit the read more button. But, oh man, his joint is too long. "But I'm saying that the Wu-Tang Clan sure as hell are." Damn. But I feel him though, because that's kind of how I felt listening to it. I felt like when I heard A Better Tomorrow, I said to myself, don't make no more Wu-Tang albums. Just the solo artists who are doing numbers, who are making dope albums like Raekwon and Ghost and Jizza when he wants to, and Method Man sometimes, but not. Keep doing that, because that's what's successful. That's where the Wu legacy really is in their music. That's where you get what you want. When you want that old Wu-Tang, go listen to those solo albums, because those solo albums contain that essence that you kind of want, especially Ghostface. But when it comes to Wu-Tang official albums, they just cannot come together to capture that magic again. And what does it do? It makes them look old when they don't look old on their solo projects. Raekwon put out an album this year called The Wild. It's hot. In my opinion, it's hot, right? I don't think about his age. I think about this is just dope hip hop. But when you look at this album, A Better Tomorrow, you're like, yo, this album is trash. They need to hang it up. The group needs to hang it up. Now, this new compilation, right? Wu-Tang, The Saga Continues. I'm still listening to it. But the thing is, we have to look at it as what it is. It's a compilation. It's not RZA on the boards. It's not a Wu-Tang album per se. It's the compilation albums. And thus far, I'm kind of feeling it. And it's starting to feel like that's the only thing they should do as a group. Now, to end this show, we know that, one, there's Once Upon a Time in Shaolin, the album that they sold, that there's no other copies of, that they sold and is supposedly sold on eBay. We may hear that soon. That's an official Wu album. So I'd be interested to know what that sounds like and whether that was better than A Better Tomorrow, because they were kind of available at the same time. It's just only one was available to us. And then there's the rumored, or not even rumored because they did say this, official album from the Wu that's going to be executive produced by Ghostface, which really has me optimistic, because Ghostface is probably the main one who really was able to keep that name alive, because his music got better and it felt like the Wu, and he was still collaborating with the Wu members, and he still was doing his thing, and still had RZA in the fold. And that felt like that's where Wu-Tang went. And we don't know what the group album is, but this is where the vibe and the feel is. So to know that he's going to executive produce the album, if not for nothing, beat-wise and energy-wise, it should feel like 36 Chambers, like Iron Flag, like Wu-Tang Forever. It should give you that essence, because Ghost has been able to maintain that. So he can bring that to the group. But we don't know when that's coming. So for now, Wu-Tang Saga Continues, the new compilation. Did you hear it? Do you like it? Do you like it because it's the Wu? Or is it actually good to you? You know what I'm saying? Is it better than A Better Tomorrow? How do you feel about their catalog? Leave your comments in the comment section below. Remember to share and like this podcast. You can follow me on social media at Vegas World INC. Check out the YouTube page entitled B-Roll Network, B-R-O-L-E Network, for more content like this. Please know that this podcast is available everywhere, iTunes, everything. So all you have to do is look for Hip Hop Now Podcast. But please know that the hub, the home, if you are already on it, is on SoundCloud.com/Hip Hop Now Podcast. And until next time, y'all, I am not a critic. I'm a fan. Peace. Drop it on the random.